Okay, we're doing a very quick video on the Keystone XL pipeline. I did a video about a year ago or so on the Keystone XL pipeline. It's by far my most popular video. It still gets a lot of views, well, relatively speaking. And I wanted to do an addendum to that video because I still think there's some things to be said, and there seems to be some lingering confusion, and I thought I would just do a talk on those matters. I made this video, and the point, a big part of the point of the video, if not the biggest part, was to show how these sorts of memes get put out into the media, and how these sort of streams of thought get put into people's minds. And you can see from the video that there was literally no difference between things that politicians were saying that are supposed to be representatives of the common people. And there was no difference between that and commercials from interested parties on the subject. There's literally nothing separating the two. And I just found that fascinating. Now, there was a lot of political posturing throughout the entire thing, and I injected a few facts about the tar sands into the video also. But what I find at once puzzling and also very, very frustrating is that even though, I made some very clear and precise points in the video, people would make comments on the video as if those points were not addressed. I still get people saying over and over and over again, this is about U.S. supply and we need to get off of foreign oil. Well, this is firmly addressed in the video. The Keystone XL pipeline is being built not to boost up U.S. supplies. It's being built so they can get it shipped to international markets much easier than what they have to go through now. That's why it's being built. That's the real main reason why it's being built. And it's stated plainly, and I even quoted the EIA on this, and it still just goes right over people's heads, and they just know it's about U.S. supply. That's what it is. We can get gas prices down, and we can get off foreign oil. Well, no, it's not about U.S. supply. We're already shipping it in from existing pipelines and refining it in the Midwest. I don't understand why you watch the video and you listen to me talk, and then you're still saying this stuff. I mean, if you want to still say that stuff, then make some kind of an argument. Tell me why I'm wrong about it being about international markets and not the U.S. market. And also, I'll just add real quick here that we're not going to get off foreign oil, at least not Middle Eastern oil, which seems to be what most people focus on. We're never going to get off of that, at least while we're still in this age of oil. We're never going to get rid of it. We'll be on it, and there are very specific reasons economically why that is true. And I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but it has to do with the dollar being the world exchange currency, and what we did in the 1970s. And there's just a huge incentive to continue the relationship that we currently have with OPEC. So I wouldn't count on certainly the KXL is not going to do anything about it, and we're not all fired up to do anything about it anyway. You might as well just give up that idea. Now, that's just my opinion, and I base that on what I know about the history of this. So, but moving on, more on the Keystone XL pipeline now. The reason why it was rejected originally was because and this is what is stated from the Obama administration. When they were forced, their hands were forced to make a decision from Republicans trying to speed up the process, they apparently were forced to reject it because there were still some questions about the environmental impacts, specifically on the Nebraska Sand Hills region and their aquifer there in Nebraska. So this all had to be reevaluated, and to my knowledge, what's coming back from the State Department on that is after they have rerouted the KXL, now everything is environmentally sound from their viewpoint. Also, Obama already approved the southern portion in Cushing, Oklahoma, so that has already been done, and that is being built, the southern portion of the entire KXL. But still have to get approval on the portion running from Alberta and down through Nebraska, because that is a federal issue, being that it crosses the border. So actually, the Republicans last month in the House put together a bill that says that they don't need the executive decision and that Congress can approve it. And it probably will not pass the Senate. So, not enough to where it will override a veto. So we're still going to get an Obama administration decision on this. And more on that in a second. But I want to talk for a minute about, I spoke about the misconceptions that you still get on whether it's about U.S. supply or what have you. And now I just want to talk about the environmental impacts. And yes, there are a couple of different types. And what I want to say is that the environmentalists are wrong in some ways, and they're also right in other ways. So what are they wrong about? Well, what I'm hearing from the environmentalists on this is that the KXL being built will cause the tar sands production to increase by dramatic amounts. And I'm going to say that is at least it's misleading. I don't think that the Keystone XL pipeline is going to affect actual production rates very much at all. Some would try to argue that it's going to increase it's going to increase investment in the tar sands, and then that'll increase the production, and that might be true to a slight extent, but I really don't think we're going to get any great increase in production that we would get anyway. They're maxing it out right now as it is. And when I say maxing it out, I mean just physically getting all the infrastructure in there. This takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy to make this stuff. To get it produced. And so there's physical limitations involved in this process, and that's why these unconventional sources are not as good as the conventional sources, because they just don't come out as quickly and get to market as quickly, and you can't get as much at a time, and there's physical reasons for that. You have to have a ton of water, for instance, to produce this stuff. You have to have, so much water that, and then the environmental impacts that come from that it makes it difficult to do all this. And then, you have all the lawsuits and all the considerations from the local governments, and it's just not that easy to do. And that's why I don't see them getting to 3 million barrels per day by the end of the decade. I'll be very surprised if they do that. They may never do that. That's just how tough it really is. So the environmentalists are not correct in that sense, I don't think. But, another part of the argument is that it's going to have they sort of tie in together, but the effects on climate change will be extensive. And it in the long run, it will be impactful. I am not entirely convinced that it's the end of the game as for the climate, as James Hansen has stated. Maybe he's just being rhetorical. But I do think that I did read something on Real Climate where they crunched some numbers, and it did look pretty staggering. But I think there's some assumptions in there about production rates, and those just aren't impressive for this stuff. So yeah, it's a consideration, and it's a big consideration. I don't know if it's end of game, that scenario. So on that, I'm just a little squinty-eyed. I'm not totally 100% sure either way. I do think it's a concern. They have definitely legitimate points on local environments, stuff getting into water. It's, when this stuff spills, and I believe they had a spill, and I'm blanking on which state that was in, but they had a spill in some state, either in the Northeast or the Midwest, and I don't recall, but it was a very, very big mess. Because this unconventional oil is extremely, it's just not the same. It's extremely thick, and it's much more disgusting than conventional oil. So when it spills, it's, many, many more times difficult to clean up. And it can have a greater effect. So they're definitely right to be concerned about that. I also believe it's more likely to create leaks in pipelines, if I'm not mistaken. So those things are legitimate concerns. Now, having said all that, what do I think is going to happen with this thing? And what's my personal view? Well, here's what's going to happen. It's going to get approved. It will be approved by Obama. I was very, very, 95% sure of this a few months ago, but at this point I'm a little bit less certain, because there is extensive pressure coming from the environmentalists on this, and this will be a big blow to much of the Democratic Party in general if this thing gets approved. And there's going to be a lot of people backing off on supporting Democrats strongly. I think that it will get approved. There's just too much at stake in terms of investments, money to be made, money to be lost if it doesn't get approved. Just too many interests involved for it not to get approved. And I think it will get approved. And I'm sure Mr. Obama, President Obama, will find some way to spin it politically where he'll try to make it work for him. But he will approve it. That's my view on it. Now, what do I think he should do? That's a tough question, because I can see the reasons why you would approve it, and I can definitely understand the pressures that he is under in that circumstance. But I think that it's probably a mistake from environmental standpoint, because when you're trying to ship all this stuff out to international markets, you're basically just giving in to the fact that we're not so interested about getting off of fossil fuels. And I, for one, the reason why I draw back a little bit on that is because I don't think we can anytime soon. But this would just show that we're not even interested in it, apparently. We haven't really done that much about the global warming issue. And we don't seem to be doing that much about technology and infrastructure that we're going to need to get off of fossil fuels. And I mean, we should be starting right now. Instead, we're building pipelines so we can keep the oil flowing, even the really crappy stuff. And that's what this stuff is. And at the end of the video, I say, this points to one very real subject, and that's the issue of peak oil. The fact that so much is being invested in the pipeline exhibits to me that this, the world interests in energy are very much aware that the future of oil production is not going to be in conventional, completely covered by conventional sources. That means that the conventional sources can no longer meet world demand. And so the question is at what point, and given we already know that the major oil fields in the world, almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them, are in a state of decline, which is almost certainly permanent. We know this. So the question is can the non-conventional sources make up for that impending decline? And that's why you're seeing this line being built, because they're investing billions of dollars into this thing. And the reason why is because they know that that oil is going to be needed for a long time. And again, we're not trying to get off of the fossil fuels. So this is where we are in the story. So that's my view on it. And I would like people to understand that this is a very complicated issue, and it's not as black and white as is always portrayed by the sort of polarized networks of political groups that we run across in the media on these subjects. And whatever you do, don't get all your information from the television. You're not going to learn anything about reality for the most part. What you can try to do is look things up and go to the actual source and see what the actual source says. Okay, so that's all I have for now, and I'll have more videos in the future on this general subject, and I appreciate it very much. Thanks for listening.